and we're discussing The Lady Vanishes from 1938, directed by Alfred Hitchcock, spine number 3 in the Criterion Collection. So Alfred Hitchcock directs. The screenplays by Sidney Gilliant and Frank Laudner. It's based on the 1937 novel The Wheel Spins by Ethel Lina White. The story starts in a fictional European country of Bandrika at a resort that's train line is temporarily closed due to an avalanche. We are introduced to our ensemble cast, headlined by Michael Redgrave and Margaret Lockwood. Margaret Lockwood is Iris, an English tourist who is having one last run with the girls before having to go back home and get married. Michael Redgrave is Gilbert Redman, a man of music, and they have their meet cute at the hotel. We're introduced to two critic enthusiasts, Charters and Caldecott. And we're also introduced to Miss Froy and several other eccentric characters. Hijinks ensue. And then the next day, I guess they cleared off that avalanche off the train tracks. Everyone catches their train, but there's sort of an awkward attempt on the concussing Miss Froy, but Iris mistakenly takes the hit, and then we get some concussion cam. Which could be the first in film history. Miss Foy starts helping Iris out, who's obviously been injured. She buys her some tea and lets her fall asleep with a concussion. When Iris wakes up, Miss Foy is gone, and all these creepy European baronesses and Italian magicians are just looking at her and saying, "There was no Miss Foy. What are you talking about?" A brain surgeon named Dr. Hertz on the train explains away all her problems as just a figment of her concussion, that couldn't have happened. What are you talking about? You're just confused. And she's about to give up, but she doubles down when evidence of Miss Foy's existence is confirmed. What's going to happen next? Espionage, druggings, beatings, and a shootout all ensue as the fate of something very important, best left to the imagination, are at stake. Yeah. That is The Lady Vanishes. And RJ, what did you think?
I thought your description was pretty hot. I'll start with that.
Thank you.
I like the way you ran that down. If I were to describe it, I would have just said an old ass lady gets lost on a train. That's it. I thought this movie was, or this film. Sorry, this film. I thought this film was alright. Like, I thought it was okay. I thought there were some pretty cool things, some nice Hitchcockian things. Like the start, you see that little town, and it's like miniature set or something. I thought that was pretty cool. There are individual scenes that I like. On the whole, I don't know. I guess I wasn't really into it. Like, I think it's a pretty good movie, but there are certain things that pulled me out of it, and I don't know. It's not an ultimate slam jammer for me. I'll say that. What did you think of this movie?
I like this movie a lot. At this point, it's probably my favorite of the movies we've talked about so far. And I was really surprised by that. Like years ago, there's like an Alfred Hitchcock like 10 great films or something like that, but it's all like his public domain early movies, like everything from like The Lodger or Blackmail, his first thing, all the way to like 1939, like Jamaican Inn, before he transitions to America. And like, so I had to like kind of try to piece my way through those, but those are really crappy looking in public domain, like no like seventh generation prints of these movies, and they're really not the best way of experiencing them. And that's how I've seen like 39 Steps and Lady Vanishes before. And honestly, up until maybe a couple years ago, all those movies had really blurred for me. Like I kind of thought that this movie was like Sabotage or maybe like Saboteur. One of the movies, I wasn't sure it was this particular one. I just specifically remember a train in a forest and like a shootout happening.
Right.
And I was always like, oh, which one's that? But so when this movie was like kind of next on the docket, I was kind of like, oh man, like there's certain expectations I have of like 1930s films, particularly British movies. Like the technical panache isn't quite there yet. Like the sound's going to be like have a high windiness, and it's going to be like sometimes the dialogue's going to be a little bit too fastly spoken, and it's gonna be like
Right.
really tough to follow. And and preempting that, I made sure I had the subtitles on so I could
Hmm.
at least read what they're saying and like catch like. I don't know. Sometimes I find actually I watch a lot of movies now with subtitles on, even when they're in English. It just seems to
Right.
like work better for me. But yeah, no, watching this movie, I mean, my attention was totally like caught up in everything,
Hmm.
and like I can definitely see why a lot of people would just be kind of like, it's okay. Like I can totally see that, but there seemed to be a lot of things going on in this movie that like I just found like endlessly interesting. Like I guess the first thing is like I started looking at like the special features and like listening to the
Hmm.
commentary tracks and stuff like that, and like there's like lots of fascinating things about the movie, like the whole like train thing, it like the whole carriage or whatever. It's
Yeah.
it's one set. It's a 90-foot set, and
Hmm.
that's really impressive when you start breaking down scenes. And then there's like the
Yeah.
miniatures in it. Actually, the movie reminded me a lot of Wes Anderson's later movies,
Hmm.
like
Yeah, absolutely.
Darjeeling Limited and like Grand
Yeah.
Budapest Hotel, because it's like
Hmm.
you get like first of all you get like this movie that's like a lot of it set on a train,
Hmm.
and then you actually have this like fictional European country, which also actually has a lot of like key moments that happen on trains with sort of like
Hmm.
this like faint fascist government kind of coming into place. And again, like with Grand Illusion, which was 37, 38, I mean, looming World War II is definitely kind of the backdrop for The Lady Vanishes.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, one of the things I should have asked you before jumping right in was how many Hitchcock movies have you watched before?
So this
Or at this point,
was
yeah.
at this point, I think seven.
Okay.
I did look it up before, and I think it was either six or seven because preemptively I made a top five Hitchcock list before we got into this, just in case. And actually it was six, and I actually only got four on there that I actually thought were really good. There was two that I left off. One was this movie, and the other was North by Northwest, which I talked about before.
Yeah.
I thought that was just okay. No, yeah. So I've seen six. That's not a ton, but it's. I've seen the big ones. I guess I should say.
The Universal
Um,
stuff.
yeah. So like I have like there are things that I didn't quite like about it, and I can get into that now, or if you want to keep talking about like the things you enjoyed, because like I think that's like the set stuff and the behind the scenes things. What you were just describing sounds really interesting, but like I didn't watch any of that. I just all I watched was the movie, right? So that's all I'm kind of taking away from it.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess I mean my thing with like Alfred Hitchcock movies, I guess, is I think my mom actually kind of introduced me to him because she would like
Hmm.
when I was like a little kid, she would have like Alfred Hitchcock Presents playing on television, and so I
Right.
mean like that like the music from that Funeral March of a Marionette. Which is the actual
Hmm.
name of that dun 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 music, which I didn't realize. I always just thought that was like, oh, it's Alfred Hitchcock music, not that it's like, oh, it's this like piece of music from like the 1800s. And so I mean, like, talk about like the Hitchcock brand,
Hmm.
just like completely
Yeah.
overtaking this song, and defining it. But like, yeah, my
Right.
mom, like, I think for her, like, she always just talked about The Birds and like how The Birds was like the scariest movie she's ever seen in her life. And so I remember like when I was like 8 or 9 years old, I always had heard that like, oh man,
Hmm.
The Birds. And but I remember at like one of the like at Blockbuster, they actually had all these like Universal Hitchcock movies. And I
Hmm.
remember like that was like kind of like probably one of the first like movie things where like I had a concept of who a director was
Hmm.
and kind of like, oh, he's just kind of like weird obese bald man who talks funny and he's kind of like
Yeah.
snotty. And so I was like, oh, I'm gonna
Hmm.
watch these movies because they sound really all cool. They're all about like sex slayers or like dudes
Yeah.
creeping out of windows or people falling out of
Mm.
buildings. It's like these all sound really cool, way better than, I don't know, kid cartoons. And I'm
Sure.
not a kid, so
Yeah.
I've always had this weird, like, I don't know, I was exploring Hitchcock movies like long ago, and then like I remember like when I started like having like a little bit of money, like Universal had put out their like a line of like Hitchcock movies on VHS, and like
Hmm.
Music World at the time, like when music store. They actually had like all those DVDs, and I would just like kind of cherry pick them as I went. So like I've been just like always interested in Hitchcock movies. I love the look of them. They always look just like they look so different than every other director's movies. But yeah, I'd never really got into his old stuff until like I got that cheap DVD set, and like that time I was like, not the most pleasant memories. I just found them like kind of drainy and boring movies. But watching it on Blu-ray this time around, it just everything kind of like snapped into place for me. I'm just trying to think of where's a good place to start with it. I guess the impressive sets. I don't know, there's like all these things that you take for granted, and I talked about this a little bit I think on Seven Samurai, where like you have like a commentary track that's like bringing your attention to like the water in light kind of reflecting off of like a head. It just like kind of creating tension in a scene. And like I was like when I was watching Lady Vanishes, there's like the shaking of the train car, the shifting light, there's the sound, the use of rear projection, and it's all really effective. And like it really you really aren't aware that you're watching a fake train, other than you obviously have to be at this point in time. Another thing I found interesting with the movie is it's another pre-World War II movie, but this one, as in contrast to Grand Illusion, is this movie seems to have I don't know if I'd call it a pro-war attitude, because like the movie's one pacifist character, an Englishman who who wants nothing to do with anything on the train. He wants no responsibility. He's in it for himself. He gets shot dead for
he had it coming
while like kind of chamberlaining it by saying, by acquiescing to the threat, and he gets shot dead. So there's a lesson there. In my notes here, I wrote a good quote or a good expression that was used in the film: "Confounded impudence."
Ooh, that is pretty good.
Yeah. Innuendo abounds in this movie. There's that scene when they're at the hotel inn, where like all the girls are like kind of in their room, and like you get to see some knees, buddy. You get to see, and it's like you
get knees, you get ankles, you almost get a gam. It's pretty good.
Yeah, you get a whole gam, and it's like even like for how little like I kind of went on a pre-code kick. Probably this year, and I remember like just like finding out about like kind of like the weird sexuality things that you could and couldn't do, and then the stuff they tried to slip in there. And like I was like really surprised. I was like, whoa, this scene's like way sexier than like because usually some people would like talk about sexiness in these movies, and you go, what the fuck are they talking about? But we see like those girls' legs on the table, you're like, hey, like man, this is like really pushing it. But apparently it got by the censors. They didn't really get it, and I'm like, that's incredible. It's pretty goddamn obvious looking at it now. How did you like the Bandreikian language? How do you feel about fictional languages in film?
Fictional languages?
Yeah.
It really caught me off guard at first because I was watching. I was like, wait a second. Is this something I'm supposed to be listening to? Because there was no subtitles at that point, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? And I was really confused, and then it never came back. So, well, maybe it did. Maybe I didn't notice if it came back. Thought it was all right.
No,
I mean, I think four different languages are all right when you use them good.
Yeah.
So that was okay.
So another thing too is when I was like reading about this and like listening to commentary tracks, the one thing that gets kind of brought up is the relationship of the cricket enthusiasts, Charters and Caldecott, and they're like, well, I mean, this is like a possible same-sex relationship being depicted in 1938, and I just like, nah, that just seems like kind of I don't know, wishful thinking, or like thinking there's something there. Like I think someone put it as like Hitchcock's like curiosity with queerness or something like that. And I'm like, I don't know. There's like the bit like where the two guys are sharing a bed, and it's like that's for laughs. It's like, oh, it's so funny.
Yeah.
There's two men in the same bed. What could they possibly have in common to be in the same bed? It's just like, I don't know. That's that 1930s grandpa humor.
Yeah, I thought that was just goofiness. I never once got the impression that it was like these dudes were like banging. They were just like two goofy dudes that like you could tell it seemed like they'd just been best friends forever. So they were super comfortable with each other. They shared a bed because like the entire like intro to the inn is that it's like overpacked because the train was closed and they like weren't used to accommodating that much. So like they go down to the dining room and there's not even food there for them. So the one guy eats all the cheese without giving it to the other guy. And he says something like, "Don't bogart the cheese" or something.
Yeah.
Basically verbatim. So I thought that was funny. No, I just took it as like two best friends. I don't think there's any like hidden agenda between those characters.
No,
they were just
not at all.
Playful dudes. That's all.
Yeah.
So I've been called a playful dude before, Jarrett. So take that as you will.
What do you think of this film's depictions of brain surgery and a brain surgeon?
Well, as a grad student that actually dabbles, not in surgery, but in the brain as a neuroscience student, thought it was spot on, thought it was perfect. It's just like in what's that train movie with Christopher Lee?
Terror? It's not Terror Train. Something Express. Yeah.
Terror Express. So, or is that what it is?
Oh,
okay. Anyways, well, whatever. You look it up, and I'll just talk. The way that they explain science in that movie is fucking amazing. Where
Horror
Express. Horror Express. There you go. I think that is the ultimate take on a pre-competent science, or movie science.
Yeah.
Where they're like they remove the eyelid. They're like the last image is burned in the eye, and then like they drain the brain of liquids. They're like the memories are in the liquid. And it's like you can look through his entire evolutionary history, and there's like they put the brain liquid in a beaker and like look at it, or like in a petri dish and like look at it under a microscope, and it's like a dinosaur. It's like, look, his ancestors saw dinosaurs. So I think the reason I brought it up is Horror Express is basically the pinnacle of fake movie science. So, but I did think the doctor was kind of funny. That actually, it's the way he like plays the girl off. Like obviously, so spoilers, but like obviously he had like an ulterior motive there to do that. But I thought like that really fit in with all of this like 1930s like borderline misogyny, where they're like everyone's like, "You stupid girl," or like "silly girl," and then like there's a dude who's like having an affair with that girl, and he's like, "Shut up." He's like, don't cause any ruckus. I don't want anyone to see you. But then like Hitchcock kind of flipped that around because his female characters were strong. So like the lady who was the adulteress, she turned it back on that bad boy.
Yeah.
So like it was there, but he did kind of nicely flip it, I guess. But
yeah.
I thought so. To answer your question in a very long-winded way, I thought the science was fitting for what it needed to be.
Right. We also got some like hardcore littering in this film. The scene where like the one employee on the train just throws the garbage right out the side of the train. It just dumps it right out, which then turns into supplying an important piece of evidence to convince Michael Redgrave of Iris's story. We also get a calf in a wicker basket.
I'm glad you brought that up because I have it highlighted in my notes as one of the best things of the movie. I thought that was just really fun. Yeah. Because I've never seen that. I came from a farm family, and I don't think I ever had a calf in a wicker basket.
Right.
So that's cool.
Yeah. Well, related directly to that calf in a wicker basket, right after that, we got the storage room brawl, which I believe I made the note. This was not exactly a green room. which I think is
Oh, yeah.
so on the commentary track they actually talked about it because I guess so they went to shoot that scene and Michael Redgrave, whose like entire experience as an actor was on the stage, he like complained to Hitchcock that it's like, well, we're doing this fight scene, we need like 3 weeks of time to like choreograph this to make it look good. And Hitchcock's like, yeah, well, this is movies and you get 3 minutes. And so yeah, Michael Redgrave hated it, and Hitchcock knew it sucked. I guess like it just like cause it's so like it's like laughs, like it doesn't like come off as like particularly urgent whatsoever.
It's not threatening at all. Like there's a point where the guy has like a knife at his throat and he's like, little help, darling. And she's like, I'm trying, babe.
Yeah.
So
here's another great line that I capture. There is no flesh, just lumps of raw bumps, I think, or it's like yeah, describing like raw butts. So it's like yeah, it's the bit where there's like the fake body that's like moved in to they replaced Miss Foy with. There's like a theme emerging too between a couple of these movies we've talked about with Grand Illusion and Lady Vanishes, is this idea of like borders, like national border lines, and getting across them in time before getting caught by Germans or like German fake stand-in fictional German sellouts. Yeah, it's interesting, like this whole idea of like nationality, like or like nationalism, I guess, that like is still an undercurrent. Because I mean, like really, this movie like takes total aim at like the English and stuff like that. Like it kind of like has fun at the whole idea of like Englishness abroad and like sort of like this obliviousness, and like it's kind of like almost educational to like, you know, fuck pacifism. We got to step up, guys. It's totally in line with sort of like what Churchill's going to be coming along with in like right away.
I liked all that stuff. Like I like the way they played it off like that. I thought all those parts of the movies or the movie was really good.
Oh, and I mean, like going along with that too, it's like I think it's Caldecott when he gets like he no sells a bullet through the hand. Like there's he just like he gets hit in the hand. He like looks down at it. He walks in. He's just like, oh yeah, I've just been shot through the hand, and like no cry, nothing. Just like I thought that was like a really really good scene.
That scene was good.
Yeah. The other movie too that like comes to mind is Stagecoach, John Ford Stagecoach, because it's like kind of the same idea. It's like confined characters on this adventure, and there's like sort of like they have to come together. They have to they have to, you know. I mean, obviously this movie's got a little bit more complicated, just because of like the whole ridiculous spy element in this.
That's one of the problems I have with it. Even I don't know. So like what you're saying, like I get all that stuff. I did like the humor elements and certain parts about it, but like one thing that I just thought, like, I don't know if this is like a weird nitpick that like I can see people who like the movie would just be like, psh, like get over it. Like
nothing's as creepy as nitpicking.
Yeah, like I thought the conspiracy was too big for how it actually played out, because they made this big deal about like who this lady was and like why they needed to take her out basically. But then there was like there were individual elements where like at the end when it doesn't go good, they have like the army stop the train. So like they have a ton of influence, but then they also like they just try to like steal her from the train, but they can't even get that right, kind of. Do you know what I mean? Like I just didn't think it really meshed well. Like I thought the way what they were selling was, or they were selling something different from what they had. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No. So okay. To go along with that, so I busted out my copy of the Hitchcock Truffaut interview book that I have.
Oh,
and so I read a little bit there about the Lady Vanishes specifically, which apparently Truffaut like watched Lady Vanishes once or twice a week. Like
what?
Like all the time, because it was like back in the old days, movies would just play endlessly in theaters. Yeah. Like it was because we didn't you didn't watch it on TV in the 50s, and you didn't pop in your Blu-ray then. And so yeah, like in Paris, like you would just be able to like, oh, I'm gonna go check out Lady Vanishes, and he would just go to it. And he always would say that like he would go to like watch it specifically for the technical aspects, but he'd always just wind up getting caught up in the story. And he talks about like there's the one bit like where they talk about like how stupid the idea is, like this whole notion. It's like, well, wouldn't there be a more efficient way of getting this like information about this pact between two countries that they actually never tell you what this pact is or what countries are involved? And then to use this like little old woman that like is completely like not able to take care of herself, and like she's like the most useful version. It's like, well, wouldn't you like use a carrier pigeon or anything like that? And I mean, like they just laugh at like like the central, and Hitchcock's totally aware of this. He's like, the central conceit's like it makes no sense, but it's a fantasy movie. And I mean, when you start thinking about like what Hitchcock's like his thing, I guess, in all of film is like he's like a dramatist sort of like, and he's creating these situations because he wants to evoke emotions rather than an intellectual response. So like his movies aren't like the plots are kind of there just to like set up the next sort of suspenseful thing or like whatever next kind of beat comes. And I mean, I don't think he's getting better at it, I think, as this at this time too, when he's making this. But I mean, like there's like these weird like technical things too that are in the movie where like there's the bit where when Dr. Hertz, the urbane villain, he's waiting to like for the two to drink their to get drugged or
like
poisoned.
Roofies.
Yeah, they're roofies. Yeah. And there's like apparently that scene, like you don't notice this until like after, but it's like, oh wow, what it is like, so there's like the one shot from kind of on the Dr. Hertz's side of the table toward the two actors, and they just have two regular glasses. But when they cut back, they actually made giant oversized glasses. Like they were like 10 inches tall, and so they could shoot them in the foreground because camera like, and so it makes it like the camera's like, oh my god, here's the glasses with the roofies in them, and like it just drives that home in this like sort of subtle way, at least for like that period of time. I mean, it's like kind of like those type of close-ups weren't kicking around that much outside of like German expressionist films, which is like a big influence on Hitchcock's career at that point, especially because he went to Germany. Yeah, so like there's just like so many little things that I just like to look at in the movie. What the other one of the main things about the story that I kind of like clicked with too is just like the relationship between Redgrave and Margaret Lockwood. I thought they had a really good chemistry. They played off well off one another, and it really reminded me of screwball comedies. And it's like strange because like not a lot of places like mention like Lady Vanishes as like a comedy thriller, even though like it really is like it's not like it's not like laugh out loud hilarious, which like, oh man, the commentary track guy, he like, I don't know, sometimes I hate when critics say something's hilarious, saying like, oh, Hitchcock is such an autist, and like he makes the audiences laugh so hard but not enough that they don't hear the next line. I'm like, no, he doesn't do that. It's, I don't know,
it's like, hey man, nobody cares.
It's like easily amused people, or like just when critics have to try to talk about when something's comedy, and it's not how comedy works. So
no, I agree with you. So I have two things to say about the two leads' relationship.
Yeah.
Number one, I agree. They had a very good chemistry together. Number two, that guy was a borderline rapist, right? Do you know what I mean?
Are you talking about the scene where he walks into her bedroom?
He walks into her. Yeah, he walks into her bedroom, and then he's like, "I'm staying with you now." And she's like, goes to pick up the phone, and he's just like, "If you tell anyone, I'll just tell them that you invited me in."
Oh,
and he said that, and I was like, "Oh my god!" Because that was like right at the start of the movie. I was like, "Does the lady vanish because this guy like fucking kills her in her hotel room?" I was like, "Jesus Christ!" Yeah. Like for a 1930s movie, I thought that was gonna be pretty rough. It'd be like a David Fincher movie, but it would
turn into one of those like 1960s roughy movies I was watching.
So like that happened so early on, it really distracted me. And then like later on, like when they're like kind of like chummy, and he's like, "I believe you, doll." I was like, I was like, I'm a little weary of this guy just based on his previous behavior. And I also thought it was funny that the way he was described in text on the internet was a musicologist. Because he played the flute, so he's a musicologist.
Yeah.
So
well, because he was trying to recreate those that fictional European countries like dance, and which is like just like it's all set up for like I mean I don't know, it's definitely a product of its time in a lot of regards, but I guess that's like one of the great things about film is you can like capture this like period's taste in I don't know, comedy and in like what sort of storytelling it wants to do. And that's why like, it's like kind of a weird way of like getting into like that mindset of a period you did not live in yourself.
Sure.
Yeah. And like also, I mean, like whenever we get to a slightly more contemporary movie, like a movie that came out in your lifetime and like going back to something that came out 20 years ago and going, man, remember when people thought gay jokes were like the best?
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No, I know what you mean. I just remembered something too, like to fit in with how I was saying, like it seemed too big, like the conspiracy there was a thing near the end where like they have that nun that was like in on the thing, but then she like double crossed them. So they make an effort to make it look like they're like, we're going to kill you because you know too much, but then they don't actually do it. But then the army stops them and they're shooting the whole train to like kill everybody. So I thought that was weird. I was like, it was like you were totally going to do it. You had no problem with it, but then you didn't kill her. But then you went to the army and then you decided to kill anyone anyway. So it's like, why didn't you just kill the nun? I guess, I don't know, maybe the character didn't have the stomach for it. So that's why they got the army too. But I don't know. That was one thing that like fit in with the thing that I was talking about earlier. I was like, it just seems a little off. Like, and like you were saying, like, I don't really care that it was like an old lady who had like trade secrets. Like, that's fine. I can get down on that.
Yeah.
It was just, I thought that some of the things were, I don't know. I don't think they fit right for me. That's all.
No, that's fine. I mean, like, I can definitely, like, I don't think necessarily 1930s comedy thrillers are going to transcend time and like make it like are speaking a universal language.
It's not my wheelhouse.
Well, I mean, that's actually that brings up something I wrote down. This is actually a perfect way to address it. Is so how would J.J. Abrams sex this bad girl up of a movie?
Miss Froy would definitely be a hot 20-something young mistress with like one of those 90s choker necklaces. And there would be a gratuitous scene where like Chris Pine would turn around and she'd be like naked and she'd be like, huh? She'd be like, turn around.
No.
And then like when the lady gets concussion, or when that guy, the musicologist, goes into the room, they would bang for real instead of just implied stuff.
Right.
Or potential banging. I don't know. And lens flares, I guess.
Lens flares, yeah.
Lens flares, I don't know. What do you think J.J. Abrams would do?
I don't know. I leave the hard questions to you, man.
Oh, well, lens flares.
Yeah.
Let's just leave it at that.
But I guess so. I guess like the one thing with the screwball comedy thing I was going with was so like I was like really mindful of there's like 1934's It Happened One Night. It's like that with Clark Gable, which is also in the Criterion and will be talked about someday down the road.
One day,
and it's like that relationship is very reminiscent, and probably would have definitely been like I think that movie was a huge influence because it's just like all the screwball comedies that just started getting made at that period of time. One movie I did watch, thinking that maybe it could kind of tie into Lady Vanishes, but I also just wanted an excuse to rewatch it, was Bringing Up Baby, directed by Howard Hawks, that came out the same year. And this movie doesn't really like tie in at all to Lady Vanishes, but this movie is really amazing. Katharine Hepburn and Cary Grant have such awesome chemistry. The one little fun factoid that I saw about them was that apparently the movie went like way over budget, and one of the excuses that they use is that apparently they just like kept like breaking out in laughter during their exchanges, which is like it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Like just like this idea that our film was like we ran out of film and it cost so much money because the actors kept laughing so hard. It just seems like the stupidest crap that would have been told like to promote a movie, to say this is how funny it is, folks. But it's now like canon in like critical circles, or at least in some. But I'm like, that just sounds like bunk, but hey,
I don't know, man. I
that's
seen
me.
Cary Grant in a movie once, and I don't believe that he's a fun-loving guy that could get down with the ladies at all. He's got something weird going on with him.
Well,
I don't know. I don't know what it is, but what like
Can,
10 minutes of seeing Cary Grant on screen, I was uneasy.
can I read to you the text you sent me while you were watching North by Northwest?
Is it going to get me in trouble with the
Uh,
audience?
Probably, but I believe
Okay, whatever.
You asked me, is Cary Grant special needs? And
Well, I'm serious. I'm serious. Have you ever seen that fucking guy in North by Northwest? Like the way he like talks and presents himself is so like unnatural. Like it's like, do you know people who are like unable to fully understand social situations? Do you know people
yeah.
with like
I might be one of
that's-
those people, but
Yeah, so like that's kind of how it seemed to me. Like I was just watching him and he's like it's like I said, it's so unnatural. Like it's just like, has this guy ever talked in real life? Like ever? Like how is he one of the biggest actors of that generation? I just don't understand. I don't get it, man.
I don't know what to tell you, because I mean, like by Northwest, like that's kind of like latter period Cary Grant, and like actually like your little comment actually was in my mind when I started watching Bringing Up Baby, and like the first like 5-10 minutes, it's like pretty goddamn hilarious. With that, you're like, oh my god, what is
Yeah.
is he a little slow? I don't know. It just seems like he's just like a little dense or something off, but like he kind of like drops that as the movie proceeds. But yeah, that man, because that movie. There's like a cadence in like Howard Hawks movies that's like kind of legendary. Once you watch enough Howard Hawks movies, you start really picking it up, especially like something like
Sure.
the thing from Another World. And I found that there's a lot of that stylization in Lady Vanishes as well. Or there's this like
Right.
there's this style, like the way the characters talk back and forth and like are almost like talking over one another just to get like little snippy comments out of the way. And I think that's just like something of that period of time. Like there's a permanent sass that defines characterization in that period of time. I don't know. That sounds like a dumb way of saying this movie has like some pretty cool dialogue, and it's just a fun movie all the way through.
No, yeah, like I agree with that. Like I mean, I wasn't like hot on it, but I did enjoy watching it. I do think it's a solid movie. It's just not, as I said before, it's not an ultimate slam jammer for me. That's all.
You don't know. That's yeah. I can't really defend it too much. I mean, that is yeah.
It's the way the cookie crumbles, man.
That's the way cookie crumbles.
Hot slogans coming out of here. Let me tell you, baby.
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
Hashtag creeps.
I think like what you said, like all that behind the scenes stuff and like production and like all those little things. I think that definitely would make it more appealing, like knowing the work that they put into it. But as I said, I am that guy who went into the theater in 1938 without knowing any of this behind the scenes stuff, and that's how I came out. I was like, yeah, it was I.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll ever watch it again, but I am glad I watched it. So I think that's a pretty good mark on it. There's a lot of movies that I wish I never watched, so
Glowing praise.
glowing praise. Yeah. For the master of suspense, yeah, I'm glad I watched it. I just won't ever watch it again.
Wah, wah. Hitchcock is rolling over in his very large coffin.
Whatever. He had a good time when he was here, so I don't feel bad for the guy.
Yeah, he is Britain's last great big man.
What about yeah, I got nothing for
Like
you.
what, Haystacks Calhoun?
Sure.
He sounds pretty big.
Yeah, that sounds like a totally real, non-made up name.
Look it up.
Stacks Calhoun.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to. I'm not going to buy into your
Lies.
your whatever. Yeah, your lies. That's all I get from you, man.
Alrighty. Well,
Like this podcast we're doing. You can't see, but I'm doing air quotes. Podcast. Sure.
well, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually message you here a link to a Google search for Haystacks Calhoun, and we were going to get we're going to get your live reaction to seeing
Don't do it.
our man here. Oh, it's going to happen.
Okay.
Any minute. Oh, there it goes.
All right. To the audience out there, I'm opening link to Haystacks Calhoun. Jesus. Well, you could have just made that up in the 5 minutes we were talking about it.
Yeah.
He looks like I don't know, man. He looks like a Bayou boy, like a mix between George the Animal Steel and I don't know, Jim Varney. Is that accurate?
There's a little bit of like Teen Wolf in there too.
Yeah, there's some Teen Wolf 2, Jason Bateman Teen Wolf. Yeah. Because I know you've never seen Teen Wolf 1, which is fucking atrocious.
Yeah. So no, there's all the great big men. There's Happy Humphrey, Giant Haystacks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bam Bam Bigelow.
Man, the Bam Bam Bammers is not even on the same level as these big tubby bitches.
Yeah, that guy was. I won't lie, that guy was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I can dig on that.
Yeah, Bammers actually could have a good match, and he could do a somersault. So it's like I don't know, it's better than these immobile beasts would have been capable of in their day.
Right.
Right. But that's enough pro wrestling talk. I don't know.
Yeah, we gotta stay away from that.
So your final verdict, I guess, is thumbs in the middle on Lady Vanishes.
Yeah.
I'm a solid recommendation. I think this movie is pretty good. Just like lots of stuff to. I don't know. It held my attention. So hey, mission accomplished. And yeah,
I'll say I liked it more than Grand Illusion.
Oh, now see, now we're going to build that canon, the Criterion Creeps canon.
But my ranking so far is 2, 3, 1
right
for the spines.
Yeah.
So you take that as it is.
I will take that to the bank. And
brother.